Recording from St. Louis, Missouri, welcome to the Slap Save Pinball Podcast with your hosts, Chris Haper and Jason Fowler.
Welcome to the Slap Save Pinball Podcast. This is episode number 9. Today's date is January 28th, 2019. I'm Jason.
And I'm Chris.
Chris, I want to start things off by saying that we got more emails on that last episode that we did than we've ever received.
Was that episode 80?
That was episode 8/60. And
oh, yeah, that's right. 8/60. I was a little confused there.
Yeah.
It felt like it was retro from the 80s, maybe.
If you're joining us for the first time, first of all, we really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. But the last episode we did, we had some fun with. Everybody does prediction episodes, and we decided to do one where we actually pretended that we traveled into the future and made zero reference to the fact that it was.
Well, we did travel, though. Right. This is the coming back episode.
Yeah. Well, we traveled twice, once forward, and now we're back to the present, I guess.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day.
Right. We had a lot of fun with it. We got a ton of good response. I'm almost a little frightened to do this afterwards because we're following, such a high bar as far as response goes. But we had a lot of fun doing it. And we had some people that were confused that actually contacted us and were asking us for links to some of the pictures that we were describing, like Black Knight 3000 and The Ring. And a couple guys caught it midway through because I think a lot of people, when they listen to podcasts, kind of multitask and they've got a couple things going on or they're watching the road. And it was pretty entertaining just reading the emails. Nobody got upset.
Actually, it was just all positive comments.
Period. It was. The feedback was all positive, which I'm just waiting for somebody to be really upset about something we do, and I'm sure it's going to happen, and I'm okay with that. But so far, so good. We're really excited about it.
And if they're not, go listen to episode 1. That explains the whole rules.
We're going to try to entertain everybody, but with that, we're going to upset some people.
What was your weekend like?
I spent my Friday night hanging out with this dude named Chris that has a great pinball collection. Chris was nice enough to invite me and a couple other guys over to his house, and he got the new Beatles, and I'm sure he's going to talk about that here in a minute. Got the new Beatles, and we all played it. It went really well. We had a really good time. We had some booze and a few other things, and had a lot of fun. So
yeah. That was a good time.
Other than that, I got that Cliffy Sea Witch gate installed. It's better. It's not perfect. It's better than the one I had on there that was stock. I think it was just wore out over time. I may try to fabricate one. All that is spring steel with some rivets, and I got
It's almost just like 5 layers of aluminum foil.
It is. It's super thin, super springy. Yeah, and you can actually buy that online, and I found some, and I got different gauges to try a little bit thicker stuff. But I'm afraid the thicker you go, the less it's going to prevent the ball from getting out of that shooter gate. So there's probably a reason why Stern originally put that thickness in there. But I'm even going to try some Lexan.
I mean, it definitely puts drag on the
somebody
ball.
Was calling me out for being a hillbilly because I said Lexan, and it's Lexan.
Well, you hanging too much out in that boot
hill.
I
am. Yeah, that's where my family's from. So, you could take a guy out of the Hoosier, but you can't take the Hoosier out of the guy.
They you know what? They're the best kind to hang out with, let me tell you.
They're all good people. There's a reason why I like them. Yep, absolutely. So, other than that, I did have a local listener who reached out, and I'm not going to mention names just because I don't really know if he wants me to or not, but he asked about my early solid state collection. He's currently a late model collector, and he knew I had some early Bally's and Stearns, like solid state games, and he wanted to know how they differed from today's modern games. How do they differ generally? Are they hard to work on? Are they prone to failure? How's the playability? What are some of my favorites? And we had a really good time. He came over. He was really impressed, especially with Paragon and 8-Ball Deluxe. Those are 2 games he grew up playing. And he said it was really striking a nostalgia chord for him because he wanted to get those because he remembered playing them. But I assured him that they're no different than modern games. In fact, in my opinion, they're somewhat easier to work on because they're less complicated. Some of the parts might be a little bit harder to get to. but generally you can find them if you really try. What's your opinion on that?
Well, as you can see Friday night, I don't know right now.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. In fact, that's about all I got. You want to know what my favorites were as far as the classics. Oddly enough, Meteor is one of my favorite games, and it's actually probably the cheapest game in my collection. It's funny how that works. I've chased really expensive games, and, it all comes down to what you enjoy playing the most, and that is probably my number one, honestly. So
yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Yep, that's true.
That's
true.
That's a joy of having the collections, because you do kind of realize, like, you maybe backstep a little bit on initial thoughts. And yeah, Beatles was definitely one of them, especially for me. I was like, oh, no way. But man, once I played it, Iron Man Vault had to go. So a deal worked out. It's a beauty. I mean, Chris Franchi, he really crushed the artwork in it. And
it's a beautiful machine. It really is.
I tell you what, as soon as you hit start, it just puts a smile on my face every time I play it. And even going so far as my wife's not a big pinball player at all. Like every once in a while, she might hop on the Wizard of Oz. But I said, hey, you need to come down and check this out. And her immediate impression was like, what's nice about this is that the music is overheard more than the dings and the pops and the bells and the whistles. Mm-hmm. And that really struck a chord with her, and she really dug it. And the lighting, the LED lighting is toned down just a bit. It's almost like the inserts kind of have like a cut to them. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, dulls it just, tones it down a little bit. It doesn't dull it. It's a keeper for quite a while.
I was talking to Troy from Top Score Game Rooms about this a while ago. I think I was telling him how I was kind of on the hunt after all these early solid state games, and that I had sort of rethought them. And after collecting some of the newer WPC games and some of the newer Sterns, I found myself longing for the simplicity.
Yes.
The very simple, fast ball times of those early solid state games. And I think that's why Beatles is good. I think it's not overly complicated. It's approachable by people like your wife who maybe they don't name themselves as pinball fanatics like we do. But even for us, it hits a chord. Like that's why I love Meteor so much. You go up there and you rip that spinner after you get it loaded, and it's just drop targets and spinners. There's no ramps, there's no modes, there's no complicated rule sets to figure out. And I really enjoy that. The one thing about Beatles that prevents it from being in my collection is the price. Now, whether that's because of the licensing that they had to buy or if that's greed, I don't know. And I guess it doesn't matter. As long as you're happy and you have it and I have access to it, I'm thrilled. I wouldn't buy one myself for what they cost. I don't think that's the one knock I have against it is I think it's a $6,000 game that's marked up to $8,000. And I don't see the bill of materials justifying the price tag that's on it. And well, we'll talk about it here in the news too. They released the topper and I haven't seen the price on it, but I'm guessing that's going to be another $5. So
probably
right. So then you're pushing almost $9,000 on a single level playfield game that is simple.
Yeah. Well, for me, the reason why I didn't have a problem paying the price is that I already had the money invested in another game.
Right. But at the same time, though, that's money if you just sold that for cash, it's the same thing. It's still the same price. It makes it a little easier to swallow because you've already got that money in a game.
Yeah.
But it's like going and saying,
and it was a nice change.
Saying I'm going to buy a $100,000 RV, but I'm going to trade in my house that's worth $80,000 on it or whatever. And you only paid $20,000 for the RV. Well, you can call it how you want. It's still the same price, but you fortunately had a really nice vault that you got a good price on that went towards it. So I think it eased that hit a little bit, which good for you. That's how pinball and cars and everything else works. So we had a pretty good time Friday, didn't we?
It's always good getting the guys together and hanging out and, talking and, some prevailing over others. And, it's fun.
I destroyed your snack mix. I absolutely destroyed it.
Yeah, that's right. Dude, that stuff is good. I'm telling you, man.
It's like 55-gallon drum of snack mix out on his bar.
I took a chance of that probably like 3 or 4 cans ago at Sam's. and it's stuff called like Hunter's Mix, and it's like $9 a can. And I was like, I'll try this. Set on the bar. Man, that first can didn't even last but a couple days. And
yeah.
I was like,
it's
man,
good.
this
I like
is,
it.
It's just a nice bar snack.
It is. Anything you buy at Sam's, you're going to get in some ridiculous volume. That.
Yeah. I don't know how many pounds that can is, but it's worth it.
It's like a small drum. I love it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was a really good time. I really enjoyed it. So
other than that, my only other thing is, before you guys came over, so this is like the one time where typically I don't turn all my games on. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn everything on, take a new set of photos. So I have them for my records. I just switched my homeowner's policy and all that. And I thought, while I got everything turned on, I shot a high quality video, which then I uploaded to YouTube. So I have it. But I decided to play a game of Stargazer before you guys came over. And sure as on the first three bank target, where you can collect the multi-ball, where the middle ball lights up on the left, if you knock those 3 targets down, every once in a while, all of a sudden there's a delay in them resetting. And what will also happen is the left sling goes dead.
Yep.
And as soon as the ball then travels and hits the right sling, it resets everything. Everything goes back to normal. It starts playing fine.
Yep.
You can drop the 3 targets a couple different times. The left sling starts coming back on and starts firing. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, boom, 3 targets go down. It sits and locks, and it waits for that ball then to go and hit the right sling again before it sets.
It's almost like it's possessed. And when I got over there, Chris is like, hey, take a look at this. What do you think? So, you kind of knock things out simplest to most complicated. And the first thing I did was like, well, let's check the contacts. So we cleaned the contacts with a business card, normal stuff, and that wasn't it. So then we get underneath and look, and the solder, there was a couple of solder spots that looked like maybe they could have been the issue. So we reflowed those with some new solder. Yep. After that, we checked for shorts. The lines looked all good. Nothing was wonky there. So then we checked diodes that were connected to those relays, and everything looked good. And I honestly don't know what else to check. And
I don't either.
It's the weirdest thing.
On Saturday morning or Sunday morning, I got up, opened it up, and I took the solder out again and just reflowed. There's one wire that is common to all of them, and it's a solid orange wire, which I traced and was following everything. So I thought, well, let me just reflow everything. And in the up position, man, I dropped that target bank down 5 different times. I had my finger going on the sling, and it was firing off, and I couldn't make it do it. I thought, great, I got this figured out. As soon as I dropped the game down again and started playing a game, boom, all of a sudden it happened again.
That almost leans towards like a short. I don't know. If somebody out there has an idea, send us a message. We'd love to look into it just to give us some more ideas to try to figure it out. But yeah, it's a beautiful game. It's completely restored. It's the same guy that did my 8-Ball Deluxe and
and my Fathom. It was it was a good week over here. I love getting a new game.
Yeah. Well, next I wanted to announce, and this is always great news, the PINSTADIUM giveaway winner. A huge thanks to Scott over at PINSTADIUM that was nice enough to do this for our listeners. And it's a fully loaded Wi-Fi compatible PINSTADIUM set with UV plus glow and the Invisishields.
Oh.
And the winner is Corey Westfall. Corey Westfall. Congratulations.
Oh, Corey, congrats, man.
Nice job. Now, I don't know if you have PINSTADIUM lighting, but I'm going to tell you one of 2 things are going to happen. You're either going to be really stoked because you already have other sets and you're going to put it on a game that you've wanted it on, or 2, you're going to be one of those guys that I described that has never tried it, and you're going to be a converted PINSTADIUM guy just like I am. So congratulations. Thanks for participating. Thanks for all the drawing entries. It was staggering. Chris and I talked about it. We cannot believe how this has caught on. I don't know why. We're just a couple of idiots talking about pinball that we've done since we've met each other. And we're kind of sharing it with you guys, and we are thrilled that you guys have joined in with us, and we're thrilled of the response and the following that we've gotten even early on. So thank you, everyone. Corey, nice job. Thanks for entering, and thanks for winning.
Yep, and Scott, thanks again.
And now, Slap Save Pinball's 60-second news.
Quinn Johnson was interviewed by Chris Kaliris on Canada's Pinball Podcast. He was hired by Deep Root as a story developer for their games with a background in comics and video games. Beatles Topper was finally shown. Oddly, on the video showing the topper, the A at the end of the spelling of Beatlemania does not light every time. That's interesting. You should see that. Chicago Gaming Company addressed the delays of Monster Bash LE orders by explaining that their in-house playfield screening process has struggled to produce playfields up to their standards. The mention of these being sourced to the standard and SE models have upset some, and people are debating the practice altogether. Ben Heck was interviewed on Canada's Pinball Podcast, and he elaborated on his frustrations with his time at Spooky and their failed plans of a Monty Python and the Holy Grail theme pinball machine. Rumors are swirling that a James Bond machine may be in the works at Stern. The fact that Robert Mueller has went out and done something that has not been done before kind of reinforces this idea to me that he is trying to go in another direction in a good way. He is looking outside of the box for ways to make these games better. And for him to go out and hire someone like Quinn to do these sort of things and not only create good games, which is what he's promising, but to also create this backstory that people can get invested in, I think is fantastic.
He is unquoting the status.
Yes, that's a great term. I like it. Yep, that's exactly right. I hope so. I'm really rooting for him. I'm rooting for any company that can put a dent in the market. And I love Stern, but the more the better to me.
Yep.
What about the Beatles Topper? Did you take a look at that? Did you see it?
Nah, it doesn't do anything for me.
Not going to do it, huh?
No. I still haven't bought a Ghostbuster Topper, and I think that's cool. But man, again, 500 bananas for some plastic and lights that just don't even actually spin. Oh, man.
I agree.
I don't know, man.
But I'll tell you, the Beatles Topper looks pretty sick, though. It looked good.
You know, if it comes with the game, I'm good with it. If I got a choice between a $500 topper or, you know, probably a $400 color DMD.
I thought you were going to say gas powered vibrator.
I think I'd go towards that.
So the Ben Heck interview, did you catch that?
Yeah, you know, the thing about that, he really didn't get down and dirty.
It didn't. I was really surprised. He was kind of reserved because, you know, if you think about it, Ben is kind of Ben, I love you, but he kind of can come across as a dickhead sometimes.
He really can. I'm not afraid to say it.
You know what? He's kind of like me. He's an opinionated asshole at times. And I'm the same way, you know, and that's okay. But when you take Charlie, who's the exact bipolar opposite of Ben,
complete,
the most reserved, conservative, holds back his tongue lashings, and then you stack him up against Ben, who is just like...
He's the type of sales guy that could talk himself out of getting a purchase order.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
You don't know when to stop.
What about a James Bond machine? Would you buy a James Bond machine?
It depends on which way they take it, I guess. You know, are they going to go newer, or would they go Octopussy, Thunderball? I don't know.
Okay, so I'm channeling my inner Stern, and I'm trying to put myself in Gary Stern's method of thinking. And what I'm thinking Gary is going to do...
Old school.
The exact opposite. He wants to capitalize on anything that comes out media-wise. You know, he wants...
But look at the old school stuff he's been doing as of late.
Well, yeah, but maybe he's kind of moving towards the latest IP, though. That's why he does, okay, music pen, movie pen, music pen, movie pen. You know, there's a cycle to this thing. And the funny thing is, James Bond has lost some relevance. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. Considering from our generation, when we grew up with it, to this generation that has everything in their brother that's like blowing up.
Yeah, it was a different time. It was driven by sex. It was driven by adventure. These crazy, quirky, like gadgets that he had that now seem really dated and don't hold up well. And it's like hyper violent, just in your face, almost Michael Bay type movies to where it's a huge discrepancy between how they used to do things and how they are now. And I don't know that the Bond series has caught up well. And if you look at the ratings for the last movie or two, it's kind of showing that. I think Daniel Craig's awesome. I think he's just only got so much material to work with.
Well, and I think going back then, you didn't have all the choices you have now either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, it was James Bond. That was the action series until like Terminator came around. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So, well, I will tell you what, Stern, I'm telling you right now, right here, you make a Kingsman pinball machine, I'll be the first one to buy it. I promise you. I will.
Only after you win the Twippy, right?
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. But I will promise you, I'll buy that machine. I'll be the first one in line. So you can take your James Bond machine and re-graphic it and have Chris Franchi do some Kingsman like mods to it and change the artwork. I'll pay more than what the standard premium is. I don't know about LE prices, but anyway.
The full plunge.
So for this week's Full Plunge, we are going to talk about the reasons for the skyrocketing popularity of pinball, and most importantly, is it sustainable? I had this interesting conversation with someone who is in the industry of building high-end million-dollar homes this past week, and he told me something really interesting because he knew I was involved with pinball, and he said that there is a staggering increase of buyers that are requesting arcades in their homes. And a big part of that is pinball machines. And it got me to thinking, why? Why is that? Chris, you want to take any stabs on why this thing has grown so just ridiculously fast and why we're where we're at right now?
Well, I think part of it is, in my opinion, you know, you start having a family and your kids are starting to get older, and now you're starting to think, man, you don't want them doing some of the crazy you did. You know, I built a bar in the basement. I've got, a lot of pinball machines, pool table, golden tee, all that stuff. And honestly, I don't really have a reason to go out other than, we go out to dinner or, go see a movie once in a while. But there's so much now that you can do it in your house, at your home. Why go out?
You're saying we're honky hermits, basically, right?
Well, I mean, sometimes we are,
It's okay. I've embraced it. Yeah. I agree. I think that is definitely a factor. My thoughts on this are, don't underestimate the fact that pop culture right now is talking about pinball. And that's not an accident, right? It's not a coincidence that Stern saw what Jack Danger was able to do with his audience and with his streaming.
Yep.
And the fact that Jack reached out to someone of the caliber of Jeffree Star, who has the sort of online following and huge influence to this coveted demographic of 20-somethings and younger, the fact that he is connected with him and brought this idea of pinball being something quote-unquote cool to
Well, it's that whole hipster movement, dude. It's not just Jeffree Star and that.
It's not,
it's some of that. It's that kinetic energy of actually hitting something physical and not just looking at a TV screen.
I'm going to get to that in a second. Gary Stern is very intelligent. And if you look at every single machine he comes out with is injected with a theme that is relevant to today's pop culture, right?
Yeah.
It's movies. I guess you could argue some of the relevance of some of the bands that he selects, but
let's step back a little bit. And, Jersey Jack's doing the same thing. Jersey Jack's taking it. He's taking it to a little bit different of a level than Gary Stern did. Let's be honest in terms of the integration of some of it.
I own Dialed In, but I question the relevance of a guy with a dress shirt and mom jeans, as Kaneda likes to say, holding up a cell phone as being relevant to pop culture. Whereas Gary Stern is all themes all the time. When's the last unlicensed theme that Stern released, Chris?
Wait, say it again.
I'm waiting. What's the last unlicensed theme that Stern released? You better take a deep breath because you're going to be sitting there a while. I'm telling you, he doesn't do it. Gary Stern insists on themes for a reason because it works. It presents pinball to a crowd that what I would call would be tweeners because they're not necessarily into pinball, but oh man, I used to have a Deadpool comic book, or I liked the movies and I thought they were cool. I'll go up and throw a few quarters in this game that's about Deadpool. There's a reason for this like maneuvering that they do. And the other thing is video games. I know we have a tendency as pinheads to kind of knock around and slight and pretend that people that play video-based pinball are below us. But let me tell you that there is a mobility of the new platforms that video games are on, like cell phones and PlayStation and Xbox and all that stuff, Switch, that presents pinball to a new generation. And it also presents pinball to people like me. I'll be honest, the whole reason I'm sitting here right now is because of the pinball arcade on Xbox. I was a dad with a 4 or 5-year-old son who was struggling to find a game that we could both play together that I wouldn't feel bad about. Mm-hmm. So I got a couple games on Xbox that had pinball in them, and my son loved them. I have a video showing my son, 4 years old, sitting in my recliner, playing pinball and screeching that's on Facebook, how excited he was to be able to knock that ball around. And I knew this is something that he might connect with at home. Now, little did I know that I was going to be the one that was going to become obsessed. And my son was kind of like, well, whatever,
well,
I'll take it or leave it. Yeah, that's true. I'm very intense.
You know, I mean, looking back at all the video game systems I had in the past growing up, every one of those consoles, I owned a pinball game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was, you know,
it's pretty much always offered, even back to Windows. Yeah, like the earliest Windows.
Sega Saturn, even as far back as Atari 5200. There was, you know, pinball, you know, in the 2600. Yeah, they were, but, you know, it was still.
They've gotten to where now, though, they're pretty decent. Like, they'll never be able to replicate the physics of a real pinball machine. No, exactly. And I get that. I get the reason people kind of like poo-poo it. But the bottom line is, it's introducing people to pinball and planting this idea that, you know what? I'm kind of in a place in life where I might be able to get one of these for my house. Mm-hmm. And then one turns into 20.
Like it doesn't take long, does it, Jason?
No, it doesn't. It can happen overnight. But
for some it did.
Yeah, sort of, kind of. So those are the main things. And I mean, the other, I like to call it the elephant in the room, is the nostalgia factor. And we talk about this all the time. It's like everybody wants to feel like they're a kid again.
Yep.
You do, I do, everybody does. And, you know, there's a disposable income level of our generation, or at least it's perception with some people. I know they think they have disposable income when they don't. But within this demographic that was raised on pinball machines and arcades, there's a desire to fill their homes now with these machines that make them feel young again. Ben Heck on Canada's Last Pinball Podcast said, pinball is full of rich white guys putting pinball in their basement. And you know, it's cynical, but it's kind of true. If you think about it, that's kind of what it is. It's what drives this market right now.
Absolutely does. You know, salaries, you know, and what people are making nowadays, especially the kids coming out of college. I mean, I remember coming out of college, first couple of years, I still didn't have a pot to piss in.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays, you know, I see what some of these kids are making right out of college, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I am absolutely shocked. So, you know, so when you're bringing that kind of coin in, you got to do something with it. You can sock everything away, but still, you work hard for your money. You got to enjoy it a little bit.
Just to play Chicken Little for a minute, the one concern I have is its sustainability, right? So can we maintain this? There's factors that could create a downturn. You know, the market and economy is a volatile thing. It's always subject to changes. It's always in a cycle. It goes up, it goes down. It doesn't matter who's in office. There's things that could affect the market moving forward. And some of those there's people our age that eventually we're going to face retirement, right? And then you all of a sudden start harnessing your spending a little bit. And you're like, well, I'm going to have a income that's going to be fixed. So do I really need 6 figures of pinball machines in my house? Right. So you start kind of reevaluating things a little bit. And then what happens is I could potentially see the pinball market getting flooded. You know, it could return to normal as far as the bubble we're kind of riding right now.
Well, it depends on how many people are still getting introduced to the game.
Well, that's my concern, is there won't be. Because as we start dying off, I know it's not pleasant to think of, but as we start getting older and stuff, you know, your son, my son, they don't give a shit about the nostalgia of pinball because there isn't any.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a peak for sure.
They're going to want an original Switch. Stick that thing in a cupboard somewhere. You know what I mean? But
of course.
It just, everybody's nostalgia is different. Mm-hmm. You want a Screaming Chicken Trans Am, you know, because that was what you thought was cool growing up. Whereas my dad wanted a 57 Plymouth. He wanted Christine or 56, whatever it was, because that's what he thought was cool. And his dad wanted a Duesenberg from the 20s. But guess what? None of us give a shit about the previous ones. We don't want those because we have no connection to them. And that's the one thing I'm worried about. I hate to drop the argument that Kaneda always does, but he's right. There's a lot of similarities there. There really is. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I agree 100%.
There's a reason why EMs right now are a fraction of the cost of what like an Addams Family, Indiana Jones, and Twilight Zone is. It's not a coincidence. The reason is the people that grew up playing EMs are either on a fixed income and don't give a shit, or there's few and far between. It's just the way it works. And at some point, those games, those highly coveted Bally Williams games that are sitting right in the middle of the 90s that we're all fanatic about right now is going to be my son's like garage sale item. He just doesn't care. I don't know. There's ways to prevent it. I think we got to get more younger kids playing. I think we need to encourage youth tournaments, encourage pinball everywhere, even those video games. You know, make sure that people are welcomed as new players and new owners and share your knowledge and enthusiasm. Create local leagues, have local tournaments. All that stuff will help delay this whole process, I think.
And there's a lot of that going on, but you know, again, it's a whole, you know, when you're doing a league and you've been doing it for 2, 3, 4 years, people drop off. Why? Because, you know, it's a commitment.
You got to make sure that you don't come across as being exclusive to newer players. And I know you don't intend to do it, but sometimes it comes across that way. Pinball 101 with your instructor, Professor Haper. I think of all the education that I missed, but then my homework was never quite like this.
Take notes, take notes. You're about to get schooled. Learning the lingo and improving your skills to pay the bills. All right, let's talk about a little new segment. I'm going to change it up a little bit.
I was laughing and I actually spilled some booze.
So let's talk a little lingo.
What you got?
First one, alley pass.
An alley pass.
Shats the lane.
Yeah.
To flip a ball as it's rolling down the flipper at the absolute last second. The goal of that is to get that ball to travel under the opposite slingshot and headed towards the opposite in-lane switch. You just want to trigger that switch because on certain games, I've seen tournament players where that's all they do is they shats the whole game.
Yeah, I have a shats problem. I do it all the time. I have to frequently change. Yeah.
But if you're brave enough, it's a good way to pass the ball between the flippers.
Yeah.
If other methods, such as post-passing, are not working for you.
Yeah.
Now, you know what else is good?
What's that?
A good old slap save, buddy. Just slap that son of a bitch like you slap.
Where? Oh, Jesus.
Give it a little working. Bop, pop, pop, pop. Yeah.
The views of Chris Haper do not reflect the views of Slap Save Pinball or his drunken co-host.
Second, brick. You know what a brick is, right?
I do. My house has some brick. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. You know, you used to take them as a kid, chuck them through somebody's window, go running.
Man, you sound like a shithead.
It occurs when a player has a ball cradled on the flipper.
Cradled on a flipper.
You know, and you take control of that one shot that you just gotta nail it. You know, you gotta hit it pure.
Hit it pure. And then, what do? You hit the goddamn post right next to that ramp. Just jumps out, gets in your way. That's what you call a brick. That is that's the reason we named your brick shot segment that fires you up so much.
That's right. Well, that's why I had to bring it in a little bit.
I think it's good.
I brought it in halfway, you know. And you know, one other way to cure the brick?
Yeah?
You just kick that right leg as hard as you can, especially if it's a game on route.
Make sure you have...
Dang, you're game. Just kick that son of a... Put a big old dent in it.
Oh, the operators are loving you right now, Chris. Loving
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I didn't talk... I'll tell you about this next one. Cradle separation. All right, that's not when you were a baby and, you know, mom and dad started putting you in the bed. If you don't know the term, here's a good example. During multi-ball, while 2 or more balls are cradled on the same flipper, you know how you do like slight tap?
Uh-huh.
You know, that flipper button? Just lightly, okay?
Right.
So that you free one ball, make it maybe jump up a little bit, and then it comes back and hits that ball that you got cradled there.
Yeah.
And then it kind of bounces, and then bounces again over the gap in the middle. And then onto the other flipper.
That sounds awful complicated. So
that's what you want to do for cradle separation. Now, as you could see by Friday night, some of the cradle separations I was doing on you clowns.
The forever modest Chris Haper.
Hey, I tell it how it is. When you left on that last game of Dial-In, guess what ball 3 did for me?
I'm really tore up about it.
So, you know, now with cradle separation, there's 2 other ways you can do this. I've seen it done before. You do the old coffin drop mode, where you just lift up that whole pinball machine, drop it down, boom! And balls go all over the place. They're separated.
Well, given the fact that you don't use tilt bobbers, you could probably do that.
Oh, I use tilt bobbers. You know I use tilt bobbers.
I think you wrap your tilt bobbers in rubber bands, because I saw you moving those things around, sliding them around on your carpet. You look like a bobsled team.
Yeah, doing the old Elvis shuffle, like shaking your hips and moving that game side to side.
Yeah, it looked like a soapbox derby. Like Chris is like pushing that thing around like he was racing somebody in a soapbox car.
I gotta tell you, there is one other way you can do the old cradle separation. It's where you take your knee in a full swing back behind your neck, and you just BAM! Hit that coin door. Woo!
Are you doing yoga? How in the hell are you doing that behind your neck? That's kind of freaky, man.
Don't worry about the dent in the game. It'll be all right, you know.
If I ever see you put your leg behind your head, dude, all you're going to see is the bottom of my Asics running the other way. That's all you're going to see.
So, yeah. So, that, you know, there's a little lingo. I hope everybody took notes on that. Because you got schooled.
We were talking about this earlier. Chris wasn't really real angry about anything, so we tried to come up with something that he could talk about and maybe get angry about. But
I can't get angry all the time.
Yeah, it's a special edition Brick Shaft, folks. Yeah. So, in closure, as always, we'd like to encourage your feedback, suggestions, comments. We'd love for you to leave a review on one of the major podcasting websites like Apple or Android or whatever else is out there that I'm unfamiliar with. How to reach us, the best way is always email at slapsavepinballpodcast@gmail.com. We have a voicemail comment line as usual. It's 314-529-1875. Call us. Facebook, you can get us on there. Pinside, Instagram, Twitter. Also, make sure you follow Chris on his Twitch page. That is slap_save_. We want to thank you for joining us. And
hey, Jason, one other thing I just want to give a shout out to.
What you got?
If anybody's looking for a new pinball machine, check out Flipping Out. Our buddy Zach, very proud of this boy.
I am too.
He got the rights to, got the sales for Stern Pinball Machine, Chicago Gaming,
JJP,
yep, and I'm sure we're forgetting one or two, Escalera or whatever. If you need to get a hold of Zach, you can reach Zach at flippingoutpinball.com.
Very nice of you, Chris. That I couldn't agree more.
He is a good dude, and give him a chance, guys. I think he deserves it. He's getting my next chance of possibly a new inbox game, so we shall see.
Outstanding. So we will see you next week, folks. Chris, do your thing.
Yeah, buddy.